We conjoined as a staff on Monday night for the Monday Smash panel talking about the state of FSU football. We did not have our two recruiting analysts with us, Matt Lasser and Michael Langston. I'm Ben Spicer, so we figured we'd get the band together and talk a little FSU football recruiting, which took a hit with Malik Clark decommitting. Guys, not looking good. The hits seem to keep coming for FSU football recruiting. Michael, we'll start with you. Where does FSU football kind of stand right now in terms of recruiting, and how do they build some momentum as the season winds down?
Yeah, I mean, it's rough time, especially after last weekend when you had that debacle in the second half. I think that was a different level of stuff because they haven't done that this year yet. If you watch the games, they've had close games, but they haven't been like this where it was, falling apart. So they're definitely I gave my perspective on the what I thought early I think Sunday, and kind of like I said, eventually the dam's going to break if you don't start showing an improved product or a solid product or a consistent something. Not so much the wins, it's just the product itself. So I think certainly this weekend's a big opportunity for them. I'll have a preview on that, who's coming and all that stuff later. Got a little article coming up, just my keys to kind of what they need to do from that game. Not so much from a team perspective, but just from a recruiting perspective, what I think recruits are looking for. So that's coming up probably soon. I just finished that up, so I'm sure I or somebody will probably pop that up. But overall, yeah, I blame Ben, by the way. I'm just going to blame Ben because Ben told me the next video we would do would be positive.
I was hoping no one would remember that.
This isn't positive.
Yeah,
No,
I was
kidding.
hoping.
I'm kidding, but yeah, it's tough. But and we know changes are inevitable, after the season. But I think overall, it's just trying to find their way of something that they can grow from as far as a product. And I think this also translates of when you haven't like recruited high school the way that maybe FSU should have been when they were going on that high of the 13-win season, even the 10-win season, and that's kind of, I think, plays into it where you don't have those guys. Then if you miss on the portal, and we kind of see what things can fall apart. And yeah, ultimately, I mean, I don't think I'm saying anything that Mike knows that it's on him and they have to fix it. But really, this weekend could be a really big boost for them if they could just get some consistent product on the field. And it's not, for me, it's not so much just winning the game. That would be the ultimate. But I think it's really just having a response. Definitely a much different response than what we saw in the last game against SMU. So I think that's kind of what I'm going to be looking for, Ben.
We'll be doing a video later on in the week here on the channel talking about all the visitors coming for the Clemson game. We just got to iron out the details, figure out who else coming. I know Matt will be working hard, you as well, Michael, to track down all the visitors. Matt, you get the chance to talk firsthand with these commits, with these prospects as well in the 2026 and 2027 class. What's the vibe and perception kind of been, and how do you kind of gauge, where recruits and commits are at with Florida State right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're at the point where you got to recruit the commits harder than you got to recruit the guys who aren't committed, right? Because you need to at least have a class. If you don't do that, I mean, we could look at, that's this complete panic mode, but you could look at having like 5 kids in this class, right? If you don't keep doing that. And I think that's where the focus has got to be, really. The only ones who are truly locked in, at least I feel are truly locked in right now, are Tramel Jones and Peyton Joseph. The rest you don't really know about, right? I mean, they're all talking to other people and it could go anywhere at this point. But in general, it seems to kind of fallen off a little bit to where the first few losses, it's all right. Let's see if they can get back up on their feet. Let's see what can happen here. It happens, teams get off the bad starts. Even Usman Kroma, who hasn't committed, he commits on Saturday. Even was like, I don't care about the losses. Like, I care about the relationship. So you want to get these kids who care more about the relationships than they do the record or the performance on the field, because those relationships in general normally lead to better play. Right, when you're connected well with your coach and you love your coach, and you want to play well for your coach, that's when it leads to you getting good stats or good play on the field. So I think that's what you got to look for right now. That's what really made them win out for Byron Lewis, was those relationships. So I think that's really, really what you got to focus on. But again, starting with those kids who are committed, starting with the Dalen McCutcheons, the CJ Wileys, the Solomon Thomases. I think those got to be your focus right now. And if this class ends up being 12 kids, it ends up being 12 kids. It's better than it being 5.
Michael, it seems like staff changes are inevitable. So with that in mind, how do you kind of keep those relationships to kind of build on what Matt was talking about? Is that something that kind of falls on Coach Norvell's shoulders?
Yeah, I think it's more just the principles still stay the same because you're still going to run whatever the program is that Norvell's doing, and I do agree with Matt somewhat that you are trying to keep the ones that are committed, and who let's just assume they do make changes, they're going to fill the class. They're going to get guys that have relationships with somebody else if there is changes and several changes, so they will probably be able to fill what they need. But overall, it's very hard to cover it when the things are like this, where there's so much black cloud hanging over your head, where you don't know who's going to be there and who isn't. So I think really, if you do add whatever changes you do make, I think it's really going to fall into principles of what Norvell does, and I think it's too, you have to change some things of the way you're doing. I've talked about this many times on the videos. Like, you have to value high school recruiting, and that goes from NIL to overall, and not make it 60-40 type of percentage of a portal where it has to be 60-40. I think high school recruiting, and I think they kind of got a little bit away from that, where things were working so good in the portal, and I think they felt like, hey, we can do this consistently every year, and we've seen with this year, there's a lot of guys that just haven't panned out, one, as quickly as they thought, or even two, just they haven't been as good, and they've suffered a lot of injuries. They don't have Jalen Lucas; he's out for the year. They didn't have Destin Hill; that was a big loss for them as well. Just lost Reggie Leonard, so they've had losses as far as injuries. But that's why I think it's very important to keep developing those guys within the high school market, and you have to be strong there, and that has to be, I think, your first priority is no matter what changes they make, they need to be more aggressive, in my opinion, of how they do the high school market, and that goes for NIL, because FSU doesn't need a lot to sell it when your product is good. When their product's good, we've seen what they do. They can land guys left and right, but you have to have that push and influence, and I don't know what the word is, but just feel to high school recruiting, where we've had kids that come in there that have told us, like DJ Pickett's, like, hey, I think they're hitting the portal too much. And when high school kids start mentioning that, that means that you're probably doing too much with it. And so I think that's kind of, it isn't a drastic shift that they have to do. I just think there needs to be more attention to it, and just you got to make sure your roster is what it is. And I think it's certainly a hard lesson to learn, that you can't just put everything into the portal that is going to work every year. There has to be high school guys that you can lean on. You need to be able to lean on all the roster, and it happens. It's not, FSU's not the first team to experience this, where they thought they had something in the portal and they didn't, or they had a roster they thought looked really good on paper and it didn't pan out. So now it's time for, I think Ira's article said it best earlier in the week, where now it's time for Norvell's response to how he's going to do it and fix it. And so I think that's kind of where we're at. We're going to be here. Matt and me are going to be here. We're going to cover it, and hopefully it gets better. And hopefully there's some excitement and some, I guess, a boost as far as, what they can do as far as the product and salvaging everything that's going on. But, like I said, or at the beginning, you have to get the team or the recruiting in control of, where you look somewhat normal, where kids can see something that they can invest their time in what their future is going to be. They need to be able because this is an investment. I think a lot of people just look recruiting like, hey, you recruit them and wine and dine them and all that stuff, but it's an investment when a recruit picks a school. You're investing that this is what it's going to be. So when you see that it's a totally drastic difference, that's got to change, and you just can't have a drastic miss like that. And I think it's hurting them, certainly on the field, and certainly in recruiting, where right now I think I can speak for Matt. We're kind of in a stationary position, because we're not really doing anything, because there's not a lot of major targets. Now, there's some new defensive line targets I'll probably get into on the boards a little bit later in the week, but right now there's not like a major target like, hey, this guy FSU's in. So right now we're kind of in stationary position because of kind of what we've seen of the unnormalcy of the product. So I think they have to get somewhat, get it to at least a normal pattern where recruits can kind of buy into what you're doing and what the future is going to be.
To kind of outend. Yeah. Sorry, Ben. To kind of add on to what Michael was saying about using the portal less. What kind of sucks about that is this next year they're probably going to have to use the portal more, right? Because you don't even know who's going to leave at this point. Starting off 1-4, if the season doesn't finish well, you could see a mass exodus as well. Not that hope that it doesn't happen, but I mean that's kind of expected, right? When like things don't go well, people want to leave. That happens everywhere. Florida State shouldn't be immune to that, but I mean, they're going to have to hit the portal hard this next offseason, no matter what, just considering you're probably going to get a smaller recruiting class already because it's already trending that way unless you start getting some more 3-stars in here and stop going off after all the home runs, try to get those other guys filling the class, as Michael was saying. But either way, there's going to be holes. There's going to be a lot of holes to fill. Kids are going to leave, and you're going to need to fill those holes. So I wouldn't expect the portal to like really stop and halt all of a sudden, because then you're sending the program a few years back. I think that's something where you're going to see it this next first year, the next 2 years, they're going to have to hit it hard. They don't have a choice. But after that is when you're going to have to see that high school recruiting really ramp up and that become the focus.
Yeah, and that's it, and certainly they have to address their holes. There's no doubt. But my point was more there needs to be a higher value to high school of the way they're.
I agree. I agree. I'm just saying.
I agree with Matt that there's definitely going to be holes that they're going to have to fill, but there has to be a different approach. I think not a drastic difference. I think when I say different, people are automatically thinking it's drastic. It's not drastic. It's just it needs to be aggressive more as far as what you go after in high school. And I think if you're going to be aggressive with one thing, and I've said this before, guys that are in the for the Battles In, or you're contributing to the Battles In, people are going to be more willing to contribute if it's a high school kid, compared to somebody that's coming in that's new that they don't know. So that's the other thing of why I think it's certainly a beneficial, and those guys you're probably going to have longer for the most cases. So I think that's just something they have to change. But I think this is stuff we've certainly talked about. But overall, their approach just has to be adjusted because of this stunning season that I don't think any of us expected that they would be to this level, or things would be this bad, where there's so much of a struggle on offense. There's so much of a struggle on identity as a program. So I think this is all shocking to everyone, but I think that's kind of how you start to clean, you get it to direction that you want. But overall, it has to start, I think, with that high school recruiting. In my opinion, it needs to be more aggressive.
Well, before we sign off, guys, what's coming to the website? What can fans of warchant.com expect on the premium recruiting boards here in the coming days?
Okay. A visitors list, right? Yeah. I mean, that's about it, right? There's just not much to do. We're sitting here waiting for something to come up, for a big offer to come up. If anything, when a 2025 kid gets offered, I try to jump on it right away. Yeah. I believe there was a linebacker who got offered last night as we're recording this Tuesday night. We're trying to get up with him. Anyone who gets offered 2025, I wouldn't say expect to see something, but hopefully you do.
Yeah, we'll have that. Like I said, I'll have my feature coming up of some things I think that from a recruiting perspective, what FSU needs to accomplish, coming in this close game. Because like I said, they're going to be play. I have a feeling there's going to be talented recruits that do come and that are added to this list. It's always a big game. I don't care if FSU's 1-4 or not. It's usually a game that it's well attended. There'll be prospects I think come in there. So we'll certainly have a preview of what's going on there. And like I said, I'll have that piece on what I think the keys are of what they need to do this weekend. And then after that, it's kind of, we're going to play it by ear of what happens and how the visits go. And, we'll have a lot more stuff on that. I'll also do an Ask Me Anything probably early next week. I might even start it Sunday because there's not a lot of positivity right now. So I might start that early in the week. But that's some of the stuff we have going on. I wish we had better news to give you guys, and hopefully we do in the future. But just one that it's one of those years where you got to grind through it, and hopefully things get a little better. And I'm not going to promise like Ben did and say the video is going to be good next time, but I will say hopefully the next one will have some better news for you guys.
Hey, it does help that the slate this week isn't great when it comes to games. So like FSU, Doak at night, Clemson, that's pretty appealing, right? I mean, if you're a recruit, pretty appealing. Hey, if Clemson does win, if Clemson does, or sorry, no, if FSU does beat Clemson, we got to do this next week, right?
Yeah, I'm telling you. And the other thing, I kind of threw this in my piece I have, not to give away everything, but with Brock Glenn potentially starting, that gets recruits excited that are younger recruits, that they see that whether it's 2026 or 2025, when they see that, they're kind of intrigued to see what kind of he looks like. I don't know if that's good or bad, but they're intrigued to see what he looks like. And so I think that is a plus as far as excitement level. But I think overall, they just have to have a response. And that's my main word for, I guess, this upcoming weekend is there needs to be a response, and a good response of, what this team's going to fight, the way they're going to play, and the way way the product can grow from this game. You got to have something. Recruits look for growth. That's what they look for every week when you're playing, and there's got to be something they can grab onto. So hopefully they get a little bit of that this weekend.
All right, guys. Appreciate your time. As always, for Matt Lacerre, Michael Langston, I'm Ben Spicer. Thanks for watching the Warchant Recruiting Recap here on Warchant TV. We'll see you next time.